Ever stumble across old photos of your parents or an old yearbook and gasp at the hair? Their styles were bold, creative, and gravity-defying experiments that pushed the limits. This was the most sought-after style in the late 90s and early 2000s. He told the barber he better not touch the back. This hairdo made you feel like the queen of the Hive or Marge Simpson. Her poster graced many teenage boys' bedrooms, and it blew you away. These styles were more than haircuts. They were time capsules, worn loud and proud before vanishing into history. Today, if you dare to wear these styles, you'll turn heads and get some double takes and stares. Be sure to stick around for the last one, as it will either mesmerize or horrify you. The Friend. It was the hairstyle that young women in the 90s saw on TV. They said they wanted it. The Rachel became the most requested hairstyle of the 1990s, inspired by Jennifer Aniston's character on Friends. This choppy, layered face-framing style with highlights became a national obsession. This peppy, flirty style was deceivingly high maintenance. Ironically, Aniston herself hated it, saying it was impossible to style without a pro. Still, salons across the country were flooded with requests from women wanting to look like they lived in a sitcom, creating identical-looking suburbanite moms. With so many women in the late 90s having this look, the Rachel began to look dated in the early 2000s.
Rach, how come you have dental floss in your hair?
To the extreme. What happens when you trim your hedges in the front yard and it makes you think your hair should get the same treatment? In the early 90s, the high-top fade was about building monuments. This towering, angular, boxy style became the crown of hip-hop culture, especially on the East Coast. Achieving it meant hours at the barbershop and a lot of careful trimming to maintain those crisp 90-degree angles. They used combs, picks, and sprays like architects perfecting their skyscrapers. However, as the decade progressed, the style shifted from street cool to a nostalgic reminder of the past. If you are a young man with this style, your dad will undoubtedly reference Kid and Play and the House Party movie. Don't touch the back. This hairstyle was so famous, you already know the tagline, business in the front, party in the back. The mullet in the 80s was the ultimate style contradiction. You looked like a nice, respectable person at first glance, but turn around and bam, you're ready for a rock concert. It was the haircut choice for everyone from Patrick Swayze to tennis star Andre Agassi to Kenny Powers and even your uncle who owned a Trans Am, complete with a pair of Oakleys. Mullets took effort, frequent trims, lots of mousse, and the occasional rat tail complete the look. It was a cultural icon as American as apple pie. The mullet was practical, keeping the back of your neck warm during cold winter days. The style never really went away. Some people can't let it go. You can spot the style at NASCAR races, truck stops, and heavy metal concerts.
You don't get it, do you? Why don't you explain it to me?
Patriotic elegance. Imagine twisting your hair into spirals shaped like cigar rolls on your head. Victory rolls were named after World War II fighter pilot maneuvers in the early 1940s, and the look became a patriotic fashion statement. Women rolled sections of hair into voluminous spirals on top of their heads, securing them with endless bobby pins, hairspray, and patience. It wasn't quick, but it was glamorous. Everyone from factory workers to Hollywood starlets like Veronica Lake and Betty Grable contributed to its iconic status and helped boost the country's morale. Unfortunately, it's a high-maintenance style that requires daily reconstruction to keep the look. Even Rosie the Riveter would give up. Sure, it looks great on a vintage poster. However, if you try wearing this style today, you might give a veteran flashbacks. The Queen lives here. Who needs a purse when you can hide personal items, car keys, or snacks in your hair? The Beehive, a towering mass of back-combed hair, buzzed into the scene in the 1960s and quickly became queen of dramatic styles. Renowned Chicago hairstylist Margaret Vinci Helt was encouraged to create something new and different for the decade. Inspired by the model wearing a small bee decoration in her hair, Margaret created the Beehive style. It was new and different, all right. It soared several inches high and took endless teasing, sectioning, pinning, and lacquering with hairspray to maintain. Audrey Hepburn, Brigitte Bardot, Dusty Springfield, or every diner waitress in a retro movie had this style. Margaret said the ideal ratio of hair to face is 2:1. That's a lot of hair. Unfortunately, the high maintenance was the downfall of the style. Some women kept it for days at a time, even sleeping upright. By the late 60s, critics joked it was as tall as Chicago's skyscrapers. Eventually, the hive was abandoned before the end of the decade.
Hairspray may be a departure for Baltimore's best-known director in many ways, but the underlying message is true water style.
At your service. How would you like a haircut that made you look like a medieval servant? Although it drew influences from the mod bowl and mushroom cut styles of the 1960s, the Pageboy cut reached its peak in the 1970s and continued into the 80s. It was a short hairstyle with blunt bangs covering the forehead and ears. The hair was straight but not past the shoulders. The ends curled under to make you look sweet and wholesome. It framed the face like a helmet, and you had to have a comb handy to keep its shape. It was made famous by Tony Tennille of the duo Captain and Tennille, Olympic champion figure skater Dorothy Hamill, Adam Rich from 8 is Enough, members of the Ramones, and of course, who can forget He-Man from Masters of the Universe? It was a style for an era, and we believe people will leave this look behind in the Middle Ages.
Now combing this straight down, I'm going to cut my shape through it. Now we're starting to get that kind of curve that's very reminiscent of a Pageboy.
Rebel yell. Your hair gave you so much attitude, it made you feel like a rock star. Spiky hair was the look from the mid-80s to early 90s. After watching a few music videos on MTV and summer blockbusters, you wanted the look too. Rock stars like Billy Idol and movie stars like Kiefer Sutherland in The Lost Boys and Dolph Lundgren as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV were all badasses. Soon enough, every middle and high school kid got their hair cut short, got their hands on gel and mousse, maybe some hydrogen peroxide, and went to work. You evenly distributed the products onto your hair and teased it until you got it just right. You bought bottles of products and kept the look for years. By the time Bart Simpson had it and grunge music came in the early 90s, it was time to ditch the look.
That's why I like rock and roll. I want to play. I like playing music because that's when I get my chance to show you what I feel.
Straight. This one is not so much an unwanted hairstyle, but rather how it was achieved decades ago will leave you floored. In the late 60s, girls went to extreme lengths, literally, to achieve pin-straight locks. There were no simple, sleek flat irons then. You just had to hope your mom or your sister would do a good job and not accidentally burn you. When the hippie movement emerged, this look was a rebellion against big hair and conformity, a natural choice for beatniks, mods, and folk fans. It can be worn loose with a ponytail, adorned with ribbons or flowers. Joan Baez and Cher made it look effortless, even if it wasn't. The chances of accidents happening were real. It's a hot iron next to your head. When layers, volume, and blowouts arrived in the 1970s, women gladly left the iron and the ironing board behind for their clothes.
I'm on my way. Take it, mama. I'm on my way. Hey!
Cool cats. Middle-aged men with comb-overs are still rocking this style. The difference is that they are in denial that their hair is gone. The Pompadour, a towering wave of hair named after Madame de Pompadour from 18th century France, but hijacked by 1950s greasers and rock and roll rebels. This style involved combing the hair up and back over a mound of volume, then slicking it in a generous amount of Brill cream and pomade. Elvis Presley, James Dean, and Johnny Cash wore it like a badge of rebellion. Young men loved the look too. It made them feel cool and sleek, especially when paired with a black leather jacket. They used so much grease, people called them greasers. However, over time, people grew tired of greasy hands and the stains they left. When the Beatles arrived with their mop tops, the Pompadour was a thing of the past.
And there is no reason on earth why Prince Charming cannot walk through our front door. Hello.
Windswept. Have you ever had hair that looked like it was perpetually blowing in the wind? That was the vibe in the 1970s with the feathered or blowout hairstyle, a layered, blow-dried masterpiece that flipped outward from the face as if it were being blown. This style was made most famous by Farrah Fawcett. The look required hot rollers, round brushes, and half a bottle of hairspray to achieve that soft, puffy, lifted, and easy breezy look. Guys rocked it too. David Cassidy and John Travolta were full feathered heartthrobs. It was glam, it was funky and far out. However, when humidity hit, that lift flopped fast, and by the mid-80s, the style had given way to even bigger hair.
So this is what it looks like, guys, right after I blow it out.
Frosty. Do you remember when young men looked like they dunked their heads into vanilla frosting, thinking it was cool? Frosted tips and highlights dominated the late 1990s and continued into the 2000s. It made you look youthful, confident, energetic, and hey, I'm willing to try new things. This style involved pulling short spikes of hair, even if you have curly hair, through a plastic cap and bleaching just the ends. Celebrities like Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, Justin Timberlake, and every boy band member ever turned it into a middle school sensation. The look screamed, "I'm a cool guy," and reeked of peroxide. Frosted tips and highlights had its moment in the sun, but jokes about having a hedgehog on your head eventually caught up. Out of this world! If you or your parents were into new wave music, you turned a few heads with your hairstyle. The asymmetrical cut was the mullet turned 90 degrees, short on one side, party on the other, and just chaotic all around. Born in the 1980s new wave synth-pop music scene, this style was a rebellion against the dull, balanced hair of the time. Inspired by punk, sci-fi, and the rise of MTV, stylists took scissors and created hair that looked artsy and futuristic. Creating this look required a bold stylist, industrial-strength mousse, and hairspray. If one side didn't cover your eye like a sultry curtain, you weren't fully committed. Musicians like Howard Jones, Duran Duran, and who can forget Flock of Seagulls made these masterpieces famous and appealing to young adults, especially club kids who wanted to look cool and edgy. Awkward grow-outs and constant touch-ups made maintenance brutal. After a few weeks, you were asking if you were helping your sister get into beauty school. By the mid-80s, even bigger hair took over, making asymmetrical cuts as extinct as the bands that popularized them. Teen angst. What if you could express inner emotional turmoil by hiding half your face behind aggressively straightened hair? In the 2000s, Emo Bangs featured a heavy, sweeping side fringe that covered one eye. It was usually jet black, sometimes with neon streaks, razor thin, and often flat-ironed within an inch of its life. Every MySpace selfie had it. Scene kids, mall goths, and suburban heartbreakers wore it like emotional armor. Pete Wentz of Fall Out Boy, Hayley Williams of Paramore, and My Chemical Romance kept it alive. Practical problems were immediate. Limited vision, constant hair flipping, and professional settings were impossible. People called it the emo comb-over or peekaboo depression. Eventually, the eyeliner ran dry, the fringe grew out, and emo hair was left behind in a cringy teenage diary entry.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real surprised if this dark stuff turns out good. I am kind of pleasantly surprised by it.
High society housewife. If someone invited you or your wife to a swingin' 60s party, you might have this unmistakable hairdo. Named after the French word for puffy, the Bouffant was the hairstyle American housewives wanted in the 1960s. The height and volume made women feel tall, elegant, and sophisticated. It involved backcombing, spraying, and smoothing hair into rounded shapes that defied gravity. Everyone from Jackie Kennedy to suburban mothers sported this style, making it a sophisticated symbol of womanhood. However, it required a great deal of determination to maintain the look. Good luck keeping it upright during a windy day. As time went on, it became dated, and people joked it looked like a helmet of hair. If you had this style today, you could sneak some snacks into a movie theater without anyone questioning you, except that they might think you have a strange hairstyle.
This enduring style came in all different sizes and was achieved with curlers, a comb, and plenty of hairspray. No 60s glamour girl was complete without her bouffant.
Slippery when wet. You love that look like you just stepped out of the shower and you thought, how do I get my hair to glisten the entire day and all night long? The Jheri Curl, the wettest hairstyle in history, exploded onto the scene in the late 70s, particularly on the West Coast. Invented by Jerry Redding, this chemical-laden miracle required a two-step perm process and a commitment to daily maintenance with an activator spray that left pillows, shoulders, and everything else wet. You couldn't be an hour away from a mirror to check yourself out and spray to maintain the look. Rick James, Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Prince, and even Ice Cube all sported it. It wasn't limited to black men, women loved it too. By the early 90s, the high-top fade was in vogue, while the Jheri Curl was on the decline.
Just let your soul go, baby. Feel it all so silky smooth.
There you have it. Do you agree with our list? Were there any styles we didn't include? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, watch another one. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this one.